The Educator Effectiveness Committee is called to order. Can I get a roll call vote?
Dr. Bofi?
Present.
Dr. Bofi is present. Mr. Davis?
Present.
Mr. Davis is present. Ms. Edmonston? Ms. Edmonston is not in attendance. Mr. Garvey? Mr. Garvey is not in attendance. Ms. Holloway?
Present.
Ms. Holloway is present. Dr. Jones?
Present.
Dr. Jones is present. Ms. Lewis?
Present.
Ms. Lewis is present. Ms. Kira Orange-Jones?
Present.
Ms. Orange-Jones is present. Mr. Rock is present somewhere.
He's here.
Dr. Thomason?
Present.
Dr. Thomason is present. Ms. Faucier?
Here.
Ms. Faucier is present. Ms. Kimberly Eckert?
Present.
Ms. Eckert is present. You have a quorum.
Thank you for that. What's our first item?
Your consent agenda is ready for your approval, adding items 3.1, 6.1, 6.2, and 6.3.
Can I get a motion?
Seconded.
Motion by Dr. Bofi, second by Mr. Davis. Do we have any comments?
No, sir, we do
No
not.
comment. Okay, well, any objections? Next, motion passes. Next item.
Your next item is on page 6. No, I'm sorry, on page 1, item 2.1, consideration of an update report regarding the creation and expansion of teacher leader roles. The department recommendation is to receive the report.
Motion. Motion by Dr. Bofi, second by Ms. Holloway. Do we have any objections? If there's no objections, then we'll go to the next item.
Oh,
No,
we want to listen to the presentation.
Okay, well, we'll take the presentation at this time.
Great. Well, thank you, members. We wanted to give you an update as to work that you're going to be receiving at the next meeting, just to give you a preview of that, because there's a number of different moving pieces. I should say first that for Hannah Deach and Sarah Delano and Ariel Murphy, all of whom sitting next to Brooke Mulpus, deserve great credit for the work that they've done on this, and also in attendance, I know we'll be hearing from many of them, are members of the faculty of our colleges of education here today. They too, and the Board of Regents, I see represented as well, Susanna, deserve tremendous credit for really everything I'm about to describe. So over the last couple of years, as you know, the state has begun to work with the colleges of education and the school systems. Do we have this teed up? We're going to do it. Regarding the implementation of residencies. And I know that a lot of the focus over the last couple of years has been on this notion of residencies. However, as you know, there need to be mentor educators who take it upon themselves to get the training and to take responsibility for the development of the residents. And what we wanted to discuss today and to preview for you is not the creation of those roles, obviously those roles have been created, but is to look at that role as well as another role, the content leader role, which you're also familiar with, and to make a couple of recommendations to you for consideration over at the next meeting. The first is to officially codify those roles in BESE's bulletins, certification bulletins. And if you're looking at your hard copy, you'll see these on the chart. So in other words, rather than these just being voluntary roles that receive some form of compensation and training, these would now be codified roles in the system to be a certified educator once you have successfully completed the training. Secondly, in order to advance the careers of these individuals and generate a cadre of educator leaders, not just supporting teachers, but also overseeing schools, we are proposing that we work with our universities to have these particular roles earn credit, partial credit, but earn credit toward the Ed Leader 1 license, which for those of you who are familiar with, you know, is what qualifies one to be a principal. There are still continuing coursework requirements, testing requirements in order to get that role, evaluation requirements, and so on. But these would contribute toward that ongoing process. Third is the development of a system of assessment that will allow one who is pursuing these credentials to, over the course of the time they pursue them, demonstrate their mastery of education leadership concepts that will assist them in demonstrating readiness for an Ed Leader 1 license. This does not replace the praxis, but it allows an alternate path to demonstrating the mastery of leadership concepts in order to get there. What you end up with then, members, is the process of recruiting a generation of mentors, a cadre of mentors, and a cadre of content leaders, giving them credit for their coursework and the time and energy they've put into that in order to advance partially toward being a school leader or an assistant school leader. And then third, an alternate set of assessments that don't replace the praxis. The praxis will still be there, but that give an alternate path toward demonstrating your competency as a mentor or content leader, and then ultimately as a school leader. The goal here is to make easier the path to being a school leader for highly qualified individuals who are already committing a ton of time to being mentor and content leaders, rather than saying, take a ton of time to be a mentor and content leader, and then that actually sets you back in the path toward going and being a school leader. This work has been many years in the making. In fact, it really started with districts like St. Bernard and Ascension and others stepping up to do some of their own work regarding educator development. We are in the process of speaking with you, of speaking with our colleges of education leaders, the Board of Regents, and many others about this. We are bringing these policy proposals to the Superintendent's Advisory Council in late September. We're continuing to work. I saw Louis Walron here from Lafourche. Welcome, Louis. We're working with the personnel directors on these policies as well. But because there's three interconnected pieces, we just wanted to come and bring you a preview at this meeting so that when you hear that we brought it to the Advisory Council with the superintendents, you are aware of what it is. And then if it's appropriate, we'll bring it back in October for your consideration at that time. Looks like we've had some technical difficulties, so I hope that my oral presentation has sufficed. And I look forward to any questions or comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. It sufficed for me. We have some public comment cards, and we'll take those comments at this time. Do we have Cami Claytor, Rod Naquin, and Leas Veron? I know that's not pronounced right. It's kind of like Veron, okay. Make sure the lights are on, and do like what I hadn't been doing, speaking to the mic, please.
I figured teacher voice would kind of overcome any mic difficulties. Good morning. My name is Cami Claytor. I'm with West Baton Rouge Parish School Board. I'm speaking as an educator for Bruley High School. I'd like to thank you for allowing me to share my experiences with the Mentor Teacher program. When I was approached by the school district at the end of last school year and they asked me, hey, do you want to participate? I was excited but a little wary because, as all educators know, we spend a lot of time in really ineffective professional development that leaves you wondering where you'll get those last hours of your life back. The good news is that this program has far exceeded any of my expectations. I pride myself on being what I call a get-her-done kind of teacher. When there's a problem that I'm faced with, I become very solution-focused. And if a mentee would to come to me with a problem, my pre-training solution-focused self would solve it for them. And that's not always the best way to go about things. We all know that very rarely, especially in education, is there one way to solve a problem. And through the communication skills that I've learned in this program, I have learned how to encourage new teachers to reflect on the processes that they're involved in to help them find their own solutions, which will inevitably create them better educators in the classroom. We all know one of the goals of the LDOE has been to increase rigor in the classroom, which includes advanced level questioning. And this program has allowed me to self-reflect and to make improvements in my own practice so that I can use some of those same techniques in my classroom to further engage my students and increase the rigor in my class. So that means that mentees and mentors are not the only ones who benefit from this program, but so do the students in my classroom. I'm a high school social studies teacher, which means I am in the universal cohort. It's a heterogeneous mix of instructional leaders. And in all content areas, there's been an extreme focus on content literacy and the instructional strategies that I'm learning in this program are intended to help me guide a mentee through their analysis of curriculum, but it's also helping me in my classroom with my students to engage them more and increase that level of rigor. I believe in the idea that if you want people to be leaders, you need to give them the opportunity to lead. And every school has a team of administrators, but leadership has got to extend beyond the walls of the front office. We are consistently focused on creating a growth mindset in our students, and we have to nurture that within our school faculties as well. We have to allow teachers to explore their leadership potential and recognize them for their efforts, and I truly believe that through the distinction process, this will help districts identify those teachers who have the desire and the aptitude to be a school leader. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next person, please.
Louis Varon, Director of Human Resources with the Lafourche Parish School Board, also President of the Louisiana State Association of School Personnel Administrators. Cammie was with Lafourche before she left and went up to West Baton Rouge. Lafourche Parish has participated in these endeavors really from the Believe and Prepare inception several years ago. We have teachers who participated last year in the mentor training, and currently we have teachers participating in the content leader as well as the mentor training. I do support establishing formalized roles for the individuals who complete these rigorous programs. These are systematic processes of training. You know, it's not a fly-by-night type of protocol that's taking place. We do support having endorsements for these individuals. It's important for our future leaders to be able to lead in the areas of curriculum and instruction, as well as mentoring new teachers. As a result, I do support the State Department's efforts to codify these roles.
Thank you for your comments. Next person, please. Next person, please.
I'm Rod Knockan, English Language Arts teacher from St. Charles Parish and first cohort content leader, and I'm here today to speak about that experience that others have testified to through that content leader program as an emerging leader in a high school setting. And I just kind of want to frame those remarks as kind of a before and after. Before my experience as a first cohort content leader beginning last fall, I was kind of a forward-thinking, progressive educator in the classroom, looking for opportunities to find new ways to serve our community and our students at the high school setting, and to enrich my experience and collaborative efforts with my colleagues at the high school setting. And through those kind of efforts and kind of engagement, I was afforded the opportunity to participate in that first content leader cohort. And again, as an emerging instructional leader, I can testify to the rigorous and kind of thoughtful process of professional learning that I went through and now can share with my colleagues and my school and my community. So in that before picture, where I was already in situations leading professional learning communities at the school setting, working with the administrative team at the high school and somewhat at the district level, and serving as the chair of the English department at our high school, all of those kind of roles were, the scope was expanded and enriched by my experience as a content leader. So whether that was training in leading professional learning, experiencing professional learning at a high quality, and then bringing that work back into our schools in order to serve the teachers and the colleagues that I work with, and expanding the roles that I had already undertaken, kind of emerging into that leadership role. So it can enrich what I do with student teachers at the school level and prepare me for different roles within the school and the district. So for example, at the end of last school year, my role as a high school English teacher kind of expanded, and I stepped into a new role as our staff development coordinator at the high school. And the preparatory work that I did through the Content Leader program, whether that's enriched, deepened understanding of the ELA curricular Tier 1 materials that we have within the state of Louisiana, and in concert with the professional learning that I experienced and the design kind of elements of professional learning, I can bring that directly into the school setting and work with our school and district personnel to enrich the instruction and teaching and learning that happens at our high school level. So with that said, I think codifying and kind of endorsing these rigorous professional learning opportunities really, and I think my experience kind of testifies to, it prepares educators to step thoughtfully into leadership roles in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. The motion was to receive. Before we see if there are any objections, we want to see, do we have any comments from the board? Ms. Voce.
I just have a couple of questions. I've spoken and asked questions about this. I think it's a tremendously good program in terms of the mentoring of content leaders, and I'm glad to see that we're looking at some type of an endorsement and possibly pathways to ed leader positions. In terms of some of the little details, I wanted to find out when we first started talking about content leaders, and it may have changed by now because I haven't had an update on this recently, but the content leader PD were focused on specific curriculum, whether it be the guidebooks and the ELA and Eureka Math with the math program. And if districts were using other Tier 1 curriculum, they were not able to take advantage of these professional developments. So I guess my first question to you is, if we're looking to expand the program and to provide this training to more and more of our teachers, are we expanding and allowing teachers to participate as they are teaching other Tier 1 curriculum as opposed to just those two?
Yes, we are, and you've urged us to do that, and I agree with you. It's mainly just a question of capacity, and so I can send you the schedule. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I can send you the schedule on which we plan to do that. But yes, we've had discussions since you last raised this, and we are planning to expand beyond the guidebooks, for example, in terms of Tier 1.
Would that be this year or in the future?
I'll send you the schedule, and I just
Okay.
don't, the schedule off the top of my head in terms of the cohorts moving through, I just don't have, but I'll get with the team and I'll send it to you, and I can circulate it to the board too, but I totally agree with the concept and think we need to do it, and we are planning to do it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we're not going to just limit it to that, we will expand it.
Yeah,
Okay.
totally. It was just, Ms. Voce, it was just a question of the number of teachers versus the capacity that we had with us and the vendor, but yes, we are doing it, yeah.
Okay, and I guess a second question, and you said you had many of the college people here. As we look toward qualifications or the criteria for establishing qualifications for ed leadership, are these being then incorporated in the college curriculum at our universities as they pursue the traditional method?
Yes, and so there's a bit of a tension between currently they're not provided by the universities. However, in order for them to be sustainably incorporated into the ed leader pathways, they must be integrated into the university-based or other training program-based curriculum. And so what we will be asking you to put in the bulletin, presuming this does go forward, is a directive that it shall be incorporated into such curricula. In other words, because that has to be down the horizon, we don't have it fully developed with them yet, but we have every intention of working with them on it, and we'd like you effectively to say you must incorporate it into university-based training curriculum.
Okay, so as we're looking at it now, if teachers wanted to attain an ed leadership credential, they can still pursue the regular university pathway, take the praxis exam in that traditional methodology, and then this is going to hopefully then at some point be eased in and incorporated in that program
Yes.
itself.
In other words, if you recall, there's a number of different pathways already.
Yes.
This would be within within pathway number 2, and it would be one way of attaining the requirements within that pathway number 2.
Right, because the alternate pathway, you have to have your master's already.
Yes.
And then do the number of hours necessary, 250 hours.
Yes, and this would
of
be
those activities.
roughly 100 out of 250.
Right, which is good. I was looking at more the traditional pathway, what happens as we try to potentially merge the two or tighten that up a little bit, but we're still going to make sure that those pursuing a traditional
Yes, ma'am.
pathway is not going
That
to
does
be.
not touch,
And
yeah.
for now, the praxis test for licensure is still
Remains.
for both pathways, or just, no, not for the one with the master's.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Dr. Bofi.
I think it's important, Ms. Vaucher, to also acknowledge that we've had, I see members of the university committee here today, but they've also been attending some of these trainings. So some of the trainings that I have attended, I've seen them there. And so I don't think that the change is going to, it's not like we'll be starting over at that point, because they're already becoming familiar with the materials and have those materials available to them. So I think we're on our way in that direction, and think it's important to acknowledge. I'll also say that I hear from the teachers in terms of looking for opportunities, and what an amazing way to honor our educators as we're going back to school than by talking about a way to honor the investments they've made in this professional development and create opportunities for them in their career. And then also think about the leaders on the board. We have so many school and district leaders, and how, you know, we want great people to follow in our footsteps, and so to create this pathway, like a seamless pathway, an opportunity for people to join school leadership is really exciting. So I am a huge fan of this and look forward to the policy in October.
Thank you, Dr. Bowlby. Thank you too, Ms. Vaucher. Do we have any more comments from the board? The motion was to receive. Do we have any objections to the motion? If no objection, then the motion passed. Next item.
Your next item is on page 6, item 2.2, consideration of an update report regarding the Caddo Parish Practitioner Teacher Program. The department recommendation is to receive the status report and the corrective action plan regarding the Caddo Parish PTP, noting that BESE will receive additional update reports in January and June of 2019.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I heard, who did I hear? Was it Dr. Bowlby?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Sorry.
you made the motion, and then second by Mr. Davis. Do we have any comments from the superintendent on this
No, sir.
item? Any comments from the board? Any public comments?
No, sir.
If there's no comments, any objections to the motion? If there's no objections to the motion passes. Next item.
Your next item is on page 14, item 2.3, consideration of certification program approval requests submitted by teacher preparation providers. The department recommendation is to approve the certification program proposals submitted by St. Bernard Parish Schools and University of Louisiana at Lafayette as outlined.
Can I get a motion? Motion by Dr. Bowlby. Second by Ms. Holloway. Any comments?
I may make one comment.
Would the superintendent want to make comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I want to clarify there are a number of different, again, types of decisions coming in front of you vis-a-vis educator preparation programs. This is no different from how it would have been in any past year, which is that programs may come to you and may say, we would like to be approved to provide training, preparation training for teachers in different subject areas and grade levels. That's all this is. So these are not approving these institutions. They've already been approved. It is a question of just the different licenses that they're able to train teachers in, and we recommend that you approve St. Bernard Parish and ULL for those purposes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Superintendent, any more comments from the board? Any public comments?
No, sir.
There's no, any objections to the motion?
I want to recuse on the motion.
Dr. Bowlby, you want to recuse from item?
Ms. Vaucher.
Okay, I wanted to give her a doctorate, but I guess I can't do that. Ms. Vaucher, we've been trying to do that the whole time since
I
I've been
know.
here. So we're going to call you Ms. Vaucher, and we'll note your motion to recuse yourself. I mean, your position that you're recusing yourself. Anybody else? Do we have any objections to the motion? Motion passes. Next item, please.
Your next item is on page 19, item 2.4, consideration of teacher preparation program alignment extension updates submitted by educator preparation program providers, including an update regarding the innovative model from University of Louisiana at Lafayette. The department recommendation is to receive the reports regarding educator preparation program extension requests from Grambling, LSU Baton Rouge, LSUS, McNeese, Nichols, Northwestern, Southeastern, ULL, ULM, and Xavier Universities. Also, request that ULL submit a report to the LDE regarding the innovative model. The LDE will present this report to BESE in October 2018, outlining a draft of the innovative model, including the percentage of time in residency, so that the LDE and our BESE may issue formative feedback regarding the plan. And finally, to retain the item regarding the ULL innovative model on the Educator Effectiveness Committee agenda for reporting in October 2018.
Before I entertain the motions. Second. Before I entertain the motions, I'm going to be recusing myself from anything that relates to Grambling State University. So can I get a motion now? Motion by Mr. Davis, second by Ms. Holloway. Do we have any comments?
I may just make one framing comment, members. This is really twofold. One is just granting extensions, which is par for the course, and we support these institutions and appreciate their attendance today. Secondly is specifically to address the innovative model proposal from ULL, which we are simply asking that this item be retained for the October meeting and that they, in the interim, submit to you an interim report. I want to thank ULL for working with us. I know we have Dr. Shepard and others here this morning to be present, and I thank them for their partnership throughout this process, as well as all of the colleges of education reflected here. They're doing a tremendous job. The extension reflects their desire just to have more time, which is perfectly reasonable. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Any more comments from the board? Public comments?
No, sir.
So, excuse me.
Ms. Holloway.
So, John, are you saying that we're not going to hear any report from UL?
They're going to submit a report, and the item today is effectively to require that there be a subsequent report after this discussion, and then that the item be on the next BESE agenda for consideration in terms of the approval of their model.
Because I've been following their initiative and just had a question of why the delay of what's going on with their timeline, and was there any issue or barrier that's causing the delay?
I think
is that appropriate to ask?
Yes, please. I think it's, and they certainly they're welcome to weigh in as well. But I think that regarding the larger institutions, the larger programs, where you have a number of colleges within the institution involved and a number of different pathways, alternative pathways, bachelor's pathways, it just is complicated. And they had a pre-existing model, and we had a desire to see as much time as possible for the teacher candidate in the classroom, especially in a school that is the same school from the fall semester to the spring semester, the real residency experience. When some of the larger institutions submitted proposals that may deviate from the more traditional residency model, it just initiated a large number of questions, and I think it's going to take a little bit more time to get there. But UL has worked with us at every stage of the process and appreciate their partnership. That's the only need for the extension.
Can we have a report? Am I out of order asking about
not the slightest.
their report?
Dr. Shepard may need to submit
No.
Did you read that on page 20? They don't have it in there. They're still required.
No.
Ask them. That's representative. Just ask them. Give us his thing.
Yes. Dr. Shepard, if you don't mind, I'd like to hear his report. Thank
All right,
you.
Dr. Shepard.
Am I on?
You're on. Welcome today, Dr. Shepard. I said welcome. We're looking forward to your comments.
Oh, thank you. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to address the issue. I think I do want to provide some context. Again, I think the work that we've done at UL Lafayette has been commendable. The latest Louisiana Board of Regents report regarding value added showed that we had the top highest score for value added in mathematics among any of the institutions. We were second when it comes to English language arts, and when it comes to science, English language arts, and mathematics, our new teachers have outperformed veteran teachers in the latest data. With that context, as we approach this idea of innovative model, because we thought that this was an opportunity to address issues, specifically issues related to inequities that exist within school systems. And this was an opportunity for us to empower our teacher candidates to address those issues. And so reflective in our innovative application is more of the issue of addressing social justice issues. And the number of hours for us in this innovative model was less important in terms, was less important than our ability to empower our teachers to address social justice issues. We just feel that an empowered teacher is one that will have much greater impact than a teacher who's just there to complete a number of hours. And so with that in mind, our residency model is, in fact, a residency model, but it just doesn't have the number of hours that matches up right now with the department's number of hours in the assurances model. So there's a difference in hours. And so when we look back and we got some feedback from the Department of Education, we received some feedback from some other entities, we felt that there probably is some room for more hours, but again, those hours must still have a purpose. And so we certainly appreciate the additional time that is granted for us. Because this transpired over the summer, as a department head, I'm a believer in shared governance, and so I would not want to have other faculty members across the campus not have input on this, and I would not like to have my own faculty not have input on this in terms of the number of hours. But what we try to do, in as much as possible, is put into place our mission of addressing social justice, ensuring that geography or heritage or income of the household is not inhibited to a high quality experience for kids was our top priority, and this idea of the residency and ensuring that there are a number of models also. So that's essentially what went through our process in developing our application.
Any questions of Dr. Shepard from the board? Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Dr. Shepard. Are there any objections to the motion? But before we vote, I wanted to take a point of personal privilege. I'm going to ask Ms. Cheryl Inslee, Dr. Cheryl Inslee, to stand up. She don't even know why she's standing. Dr. Inslee is going to be working with me at Grambling State University, but even more than that, her mom was my original mentor when I came to Grambling, and I would have left the first day except for her mom. So you tell your mom, I know she hasn't been feeling well, but tell her Thompson not feeling as well either, but we're just glad to have you, but we're going to keep going forward like she's doing. Thank you for being here today. Now thank y'all for that applause. If we don't have any objections, then the motion passes. We'll go to the next item. But of course, I recuse myself, from 2.4 related to Grambling, so we got that in the record.
Before we go to the next item, are there any other items specific to the universities and the extensions? Because I had some questions about LSUs.
I think this
particular item?
LSU is considered in this item.
Okay. Should we call them up for questions?
I think if you'd like to.
Yes. Can we do that?
Yeah, yes, we can. Is LSU
Okay.
in the house? All right. Oh, this is home turf here. We thank y'all for being here today, and we appreciate y'all letting us share your city with you. And y'all can decide who's going first. And make sure, and introduce yourself for the board, please.
Good morning, my name is Neil Matthews. I see the green light on. Can you hear me?
I'm not sure that it is on, is it? I can hear you, but I'm not sure we're getting you over the internet.
It's brighter now. So
Okay, yes, that's better. Thank you.
on better. My name's Neil Matthews. I serve as Director of the School of Education at Louisiana State University, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to address your questions or to also answer any concerns you may have concerning our programs. I'm working with 26 different certification programs across the university in 5 colleges, 3 schools, and 10 departments. So it's a process when you change LSU's program. I want to just thank you for the extension because we needed it. Out of the 26 programs, we will assure you that 16 of them have converted, are in the process of converting, and we'll have those done.
And when you say converted, you mean meeting BESE
year-long.
policy relative to the percentages of time? Okay,
That's correct.
helpful. So
Year-long-
16 of the
year-long
26
residencies.
are there.
Right. And remember,
Okay.
3 of those we've already had for years, since the early 1990s, the alternate certification program for the Masters of Arts in Teaching in secondary and elementary we implemented as the Holmes program back in the 1990s, so they were already done. I also want to mention, I want to thank you for the transition funding. This isn't without cost. It takes administrative time. It takes payment of supervisors, so we are in the process of making sure that we can double down on the cost associated with this transition so that it is affordable for us to do this program, and that's still a concern for me. But I do want to introduce Dr. Richard Baker to my right, who serves as the Associate Director, Teacher Licensure and Operations in the School of Education, and Dr. Jim Madden, Associate Dean of Special Projects in the College of Science, Co-Director of the Kane Center, and Professor of Mathematics. And it's within agriculture, music, and the sciences that we have the 10 innovative programs that are being transitioned with enhanced clinical experiences. So I'm going to yield the rest of my time, unless you have specific questions for me, to both of them to address any concerns you might have.
Just a comment before we do, and it's to say that I'm actually a graduate of the Holmes program, and one of the reasons why I'm a proponent of this residency model, because it was so important in my own experiences, and so I am familiar with that particular one, sir.
Sure. Well, you probably paid tuition when it was a whole lot cheaper than it was now. So that's,
yes.
That's a problem. We don't have as many students because they are in debt to the tune of about $34,000 to $37,000 when they end up that. So that's some of the challenges we face, is how does a student afford a fifth-year degree program at LSU at the master's level immediately after they've borrowed for their undergraduate days.
Richard Baker, Office of Professional Experiences. I may have the bum microphone. We have in our student teaching experiences.
Why don't you switch the microphones? When people are listening online, it's so much better for them to actually get the audio.
Richard Baker with the Office of Professional Experiences. We do, in our student teaching experience, the minimum has been 180 hours during one semester. Most of our students do at least 200, and we have had several that have gone beyond that to do 240 hours student teaching experiences. This last year and this year, we're in the process of upgrading all of our clinical experiences and field experiences. Before, what we were seeing, especially in some degree programs, was a lot of observation and not enough of getting their hands dirty doing education. And we are now turning that, and we are righting that ship so that they are going to be a lot more involved in the process. We're working with teachers and principals to see that they become more involved and help get them off the sideline and into the arena.
Great.
I'm Jim Madden. I guess you know who I am already because I've been introduced. Our problem with educating science teachers is that the undergrad, the goal of the Go Teach program is to educate science teachers who have a full degree in the content area. I think these people are very valuable in the field. They can serve a number of roles, particularly content leadership roles. The problem that we need to grapple with, and it's a tough problem, is how do we budget the time during the 7th semester? Presently, because of the UTeach replication that we have a final semester in which the residency is essentially full-time. And I think we can document over 400 hours in the school doing our residency activities in the last semester. But in the semester before that, typically students need to take a number of content courses. And the content courses may also include labs. So budgeting the time during that semester is very difficult. We've taken a look at it, and we would perhaps like to propose a solution to this where we document the equivalent of 300 hours, which would be a 60% residency, but where that 300 hours doesn't occur only in the 7th semester. I don't know. The big question is, would something like that be acceptable?
Dr. Madden, help me understand, is it in the science, because you referred to science, and I know that your background is in math, is it in science and math where we haven't met BESE policy with the percentage of time in the residency?
Yes.
Okay. And But we have met that requirement in some of the other, like in the social studies and English, I guess at the secondary level. Is that right, Dr. Matthews?
Yes,
Okay, okay. That's helpful. And you're saying you have a struggle in getting the content in that 7th semester. So it's a time issue that you're struggling with.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
No, you can finish.
Oh, and again, I want to emphasize that the departments are attempting to give a legitimate, say, full-strength degree in the content area. So physics, for example, provides what they sort of will accept as a full degree, but they even say that they've had to attenuate some of the courses that they would find desirable, but that maybe could be omitted.
And so I think the tension that we're trying to deal with here is that we want that deep content knowledge, and I see that's what you guys are aiming for, but at the same time we want people to have practice as a teacher, because we believe that that's what is going to help us retain these individuals over time, make sure that they can relate to students when they get in that first year, that they understand what it takes to be a teacher and they're prepared for it. So I'm really glad that we have these check-ins so that we're not getting to the approval point and then find out places where we're struggling, because it's great. You guys you're almost there, right? You've got there 16 of the 26. And so I would just encourage, before we have this conversation again, I'm assuming that next check-in is in October. Before we have this check-in again, I want to direct the department to identify how other programs, whether it's programs within LSU, have been able to achieve it, or other programs, especially because this is specific to science and math, at other institutions have been able to achieve what we're trying to achieve, to give the teachers the opportunity to practice, that year-long of practice. And so I don't know if we need that in the form of a motion, Mr. White, or if you can get your staff to work with LSU, particularly with the science and math, to figure out how other people have achieved the residency. I understand getting to the 60-80 may be difficult, but I think we can, if we look at how other people have been able to achieve it, we can get closer.
I will take that guidance back to the team, and we'll continue the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments from the board? I want to thank each one of you for your testimony. And do the board, anybody? Okay, y'all are dismissed at this point. Thank you. And do we have any more comments from the board before we call?
I have a quick question, Dr. Thomason. So in October, we're approving these models. Like, what's going on in October?
ULs.
Just UL?
ULs will be on the agenda.
So what about LSU in these areas?
LSU, I believe, has the extension. Yeah.
Another one?
And so it will be, so that would be a January item, is that right? So that would be a January item, yes.
All right.
Yeah.
I might add that typically, and Jim, you can help me out, humanities and social sciences and English and history majors, they are not going to have labs. I apologize. They're not going to have labs, so that's one of the issues they're running into. A history or a social or a history major or an English major is not going to have the same, they do not have the same kinds of problems with time. So
that's why I think our other institutions are probably going to be the places that we need to connect with, just to see. And so I think if the staff digs into the proposals from these other institutions, particularly in science and math, then we'll be able to get more information to see. And that's what I think the beauty of this work as it's unfolded is that we're all learning together.
Well, you're stepping right into the heart of what has always been in the academy, the curricular wars that exist between disciplines and the content experts and the education process that we all believe in. So welcome to the battle.
So that's what I was trying to pick up on, is that there's within your area is to have everyone collaborate to move forward with this, and that's why the extension.
Right. We have a wonderful teacher education council that meets at least every other week that discusses this issue in depth and detail.
I mean, I think, members, if I can try to simplify it to the three comments from the board, it is you have the major, which Jim was discussing, You have the requirements for more practice, which we have obviously done quite a lot to address, and then you have every other requirement for students to graduate. And I think that to Dr. Bofe's point, it does feel like some of the institutions are navigating it quite successfully. I think everything here at LSU is done with the best of intentions. As Dr. Matthews says, it is the biggest institution. It has a very large number of pathways. But we have to get this right, and we will work. We'll take Dr. Bofe's direction, and we'll work with LSU to make sure we get it right. I appreciate the attention to this.
Any more comments from the board? Again, thank you. Thank you for your comments. Are there any objections to the motion? No objection. Motion passes. Next item, please.
Your next item is on page 44, item 4.1. Consider. Your next item is on page 44, item 4.1, consideration of revisions to Bulletin 746, Louisiana Standards for State Certification of School Personnel regarding praxis scores, endorsements, and certification in the area of mathematics. The department recommendation is to approve as notice of intent.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Jones, second by Mr. Davis. Any comments from the superintendent? Any comments from Dr. Bochet? Comments from Dr. Bochet? I still said Dr. Bochet.
All right.
Okay, Ms. Bochet. Okay, you got it.
I've been involved in this process, and I want to thank the people who were meeting on this to develop the add-on certification for Algebra 1, or at least to refine it, because what we had before, obviously, with modules not being present anymore and a praxis exam available, I think this is going to help alleviate some of the problems in finding certified math teachers for especially for the Algebra 1 and the 8th and the 9th grades. I would like to see if there is any way, for the future, because of the issues we're having in finding quality certified math teachers, that we explore very intensely this year something or a pathway toward also an add-on through the geometry, which would be through the 10th grade. I realize there is no, at this point, a national praxis exam geared specifically in that particular area. If we could either work with the testing service or take a look at what we could develop to make sure that there is a strong enough background in mathematics to be able to effectively teach the course. But we're finding a great problem throughout the state in getting quality certified mathematics teachers, especially in those 9th and 10th grade courses.
Thank you, Ms. Bochet. Do we have any more comments? Dr. Buffy, look like you're ready.
I just think we have to stop and acknowledge the fact that middle school math is a place where we're struggling most as a state. And I respect where we are, and I understand the problems that we're trying to solve here, but I do think that it's worth just noting that this is a place where we've struggled, and that while I'm prepared to support this, I think we need to study it over time. And if we're not making the right decision, then I think we need to be prepared to bring it back to the table and have more conversations about it. I don't know. I honestly believe that it's our content leaders will be the path forward for us relative to middle school math. I'm excited about the investments we're making there, but I do think we have to acknowledge that this is a place where we struggled, and so we need to be prepared to bring it back to the table if we don't figure out how to do a better job by kids relative to preparing them to be successful in math.
Thank you, Dr.
Just to add one thing to that, one thing I would like to do is when this year's growth data come out for districts and for schools, I'd like us to take a look at the relationship between growth and the license areas or the lack of license areas that schools have. And I'd like us to begin to be able to, the department, but I'd also like to talk about it with you, to dig into, is there a relationship between places where we're seeing some of these human resources struggles and places where we're seeing or not seeing gains? We can come back and talk about that when those data come out, perhaps at the next meeting, but I do agree with Dr. Bophy's focus on middle school math. It is without question our greatest academic struggle right now, and something that we need to dig in more to.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Any more comments from the board? We have a public comment. We have one public comment, Louis, how you pronounce it? Baran, Louis Baran. Not here. Okay, okay. But thank you for your support. Do we have any objections to the motion now? We have none. If there's no objection to the motion passes. The next item, please.
Your next item is on page 48, item 4.2, consideration of revisions to bulletins in response to Act 634 of the 2018 regular legislative session. The department recommendation is to establish as declaration of emergency and as notice of intent, Bulletin 745, Louisiana teaching authorizations for school personnel in response to Act 634 of 2018, and approve as declarations of emergency and notices of intent revisions to Bulletins 126, 741, 741 non-public, and 746 regarding Act 634 of the 2018 regular legislative session.
Can I get a motion? Motion by Dr. Jones.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davis. Any comments? Any public comments?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Todd Mananeri. Look like it's Ty Mananeri. Maneri, okay. Ty Maneri, okay, we got it. Okay. Michael Falk. And Sarah Vandergriff. But she supports but do not wish to speak. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson, ladies and gentlemen of the board. And I did have a comment on 4.1. I put them all together. I just want to say that I think this is an important first step, and that we need to look at it. I think in the report it says that we request a report given to the board in January of 2020. So, and I think this will help school systems in the interim as we look for further long-term solutions. Regarding Act 634, I'm here to express a situation that is impacting many school districts across the state. We discussed at our summer conference the impact of this proposed legislation. We discussed it with the state police, and we discussed it with the governor's office. And the feedback that I'm getting from school superintendents across the state, those that do not have the electronic system within their school system go through the state police for background checks and the fingerprints. Because of the backlog that the state police are having because of so many requests, their concern is that in order to follow what they believe is the requirements of the law, they cannot place a person in a position until that background check comes back. In my discussions with Dr. Jones, I believe we have some information that we can share with the superintendents. And I contacted the Louisiana School Boards Association, and they have one of their legal representatives here this morning to talk about some things. We just want you to know that we do not have the intent as superintendents to try to place anyone in any position that should not be in a position to deal with children. We consider that of utmost priority. And we ask, and I think we'll be able to get some assistance in moving forward to fill some vacancies in school systems at the start of this school year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Thomason. My name is Ty Maneri. I work with Hammond, Sills, Atkins, and Geis. We represent a number of school districts around the state. I'm not here today representing any particular client, but I just want to piggyback on the comments that Superintendent Falk made. We've got some concerns about the, in essence, revocation of the provision that allowed school districts to put teachers in the classroom while these background checks were pending. Certainly, we advise our districts to make sure folks are cleared before they put them in the classroom, but circumstances do arise, unexpected resignations, changes in enrollment patterns that sometimes weren't getting people in the classroom quickly. We are just here today to ask for some consideration from the State Department of Ed and BESE with regard to your discretion around the enforcement of that and the issuance of fines. We understand this is a statutory matter and that you guys don't have any discretion about waiving it, but that you just show some consideration to school boards, particularly as we transition into this statute that's now been in effect since July 1, that some consideration shown in the exercise of that discretion around fines and other sanctions that may come from having teachers in the classroom while background checks are pending right now.
Well, right now, we're going to recognize Dr. Jones. Now, this is the longest that it ever took for me to recognize him, so we're going to make sure he gets something, make sure he's okay.
Thank you. And Ty, I won't hold it against you that you work with my good friend John Geis. But, let me just say, and the reason I'm asked to be allowed to speak on this was that I guess you would say I was the moving force behind getting this bill done. This was a bill that I actually work with Aaron Benderly, and we got it through the legislature. And by the way, that particular piece I think that's causing you concern, we use the language that came from the school board's attorney, association attorney, to help write that particular thing. But I think the concern that you have in there, first of all, I don't believe anywhere in the statute there's a criminal penalty against a school board for an action there. The law does now say that you can't hire someone temporary. But there's a civil fine that's in there, and that civil fine is in Section F, and that's what I want to talk about because I think that will allay most of the concerns here. And what it says is that the State Board of Elementary and Secondary Education may assess a civil fine against a school governing authority that knowingly employs a person without requesting a criminal records check. Well, as long as you request a criminal records check, you've met that part of it. Or who knowingly hires a person who has been convicted of or pled nolo contendere. Well, you wouldn't know that until you got the criminal records check back. So I think the intent of the law and the intent of BESE, and I'm not speaking for BESE here, we would obviously have that discussion, but I think is that we understand the realities of school districts having to employ people and sometimes having to employ them until they get it back. The key thing to us is, what do you do when you get it back and it does have a felony conviction and so forth? Because at that point, if you don't dismiss that person, then you're knowingly in violation of the statute, and I think that would be something that would be of concern to BESE, and was in fact the reason we put it in the first place, because we had instances of in a couple of cases where school boards hired someone for 2 years as a temporary substitute teacher, quote unquote, who was also the head football coach, that obviously subverted the intent of the statute in the first place. So I think I believe that we carefully crafted Section F to say that civil penalty may be assessed in instances where the board considered it a knowing violation of it, but otherwise we understand the realities of having to employ people, particularly at the beginning of the school year.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Any more comments?
Oh, I'm sorry, may I have one more?
Go ahead.
We've also, by the way, worked with the state police. I know some of the concerns that are being expressed here. We're no longer relying solely on mail. The department has initiated a process with the state police where they're sending someone to the state police headquarters twice a week to pick up those reports so that we can get the information back to the districts in a much more timely manner and solve a whole lot of this issue. So I think we've got ongoing discussions with the state police about that, and I commend Superintendent White and his staff and Aaron Benderly for working this issue through. We knew that there would be, and by the way, this bill is substantially different in final form than it was when it went on the floor, and a lot of amendments were made that we didn't know what you think about before they came up. But the reality is here, the purpose and intent of the bill is good, and I think we'll be able to work through any perceived flaws.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Any more comments from the board? Thank you for your public comments. Ms. Fauché got her hands up.
I just have a question. In part of this, they're talking about teaching authorizations for substitutes, as well as regular teachers, administrators, and such. Could you elaborate a little bit on that, on what that authorization will be, and is this related to and pertains to day-by-day subs? That we're going to have some type of authorization from LDOE on day-by-day subs?
Yes.
And what that will entail?
Let me ask, I don't want to step beyond my own knowledge base, so let me ask Ms. Bendeley to comment on some of these issues.
Ms. Fauché, substitutes have always had to have a criminal background check.
Oh, that's without saying, but we're talking about authorizations other than that.
This new process, though, seeks to align the process that's typically used and has long been used for certified teachers to make sure that for those individuals who were in a classroom, who have supervision of children, who are not certified, that we have a parallel process to make sure that they too have passed and been cleared from a background check. So that's where this new term comes in, an authorization to teach. This is referring to individuals that don't necessarily hold a certificate, but at the same time, we want school systems to know that they have been cleared in that background check. So we will begin issuing something called an authorization to teach that merely just signifies that they have passed that background check. So it would apply to substitutes, it would apply to individuals who teach in some of our charter schools, for example, where certification is not required. We now have a parallel process to make sure that we check for the same types of offenses and just provide basically a sheet of paper, an assurance to say, yes, you have been found to have cleared your background check in the same manner that we do for individuals that hold a teaching certificate.
So if we as districts have our own machines, if we're not going through the state police, and we run these background checks, are we going at the district level having to submit something to the State Department saying that we have run the background check, that person is cleared? I'm talking about a day-by-day sub.
Sure. We already
At which point you send something back to us, and is there a cost associated with that?
Previously, we would get copies of anything that was found if someone did have a felony conviction in their records. We have worked with state police over the last couple of weeks to make sure that even in the event that someone is cleared, where we may not get a copy of something saying that there's something there in the record that's problematic, they have agreed to also copy us on their communications back to districts, letting us know that the individual is cleared. So we'll be getting that same response the same time that school systems do. That way it will save us all some time and expense. We won't have to ask you for another sheet of paper or another communication. We'll get the same information at the same time you do, and we can go ahead and begin processing those and make sure that we give those out to those individuals and those employing school districts as soon as possible.
So you will just send those notifications to us?
You will receive those from state police, and we will get them at the same time.
So as soon as we receive them, though, from the state police, we can put that person in a classroom, correct? We don't have to wait for you to send it to us again.
I believe we will be issuing those teaching authorizations, but Shan, if you want to elaborate.
Shan Davis, BESE Executive Director. So this is beginning this year, so you're not going back and doing this for any prior employees, previous employees or current employees, unless they're being rehired or placed in a new position. But if you look at this new bulletin 745 on page 50, it has the process for the teaching authorizations to be issued. Letter D says a request for a teaching authorization shall be submitted directly to the LDE by the employing school governing authority where the individual is seeking employment. So you are applying for this authorization.
That's what I was asking. So we do have to submit something to say this is a substitute for us and there'll be some form we have to submit that on, and we run our own background check, therefore we can put them in the classroom. Is there a cost associated, just like when we send something in for teachers or
There's nothing in
whatever?
here about costs. I don't know.
Not for the teaching authorization that you will receive from us.
Okay.
You know, whatever there is to get the background check, that's the same as it has always been.
All right, so
It'll
we
be tied to
submit,
that school, that LEA only.
and those forms will be sent out to districts?
We're in the process of working with state police, and also we've worked with the state personnel administrators and other key stakeholders on guidance that we'll be putting out to districts very soon. We're also planning a webinar, tried to introduce this topic over the last few district newsletters and superintendent's conference calls. We'll be continuing to issue guidance as the process is developed.
So
We're
those that
reviewing
we've already
guidelines right
placed in classrooms, because we've started the year, we've just gone under the regular process. But we will have to go back now and apply for those people for an
If they're
authorization?
new hires, if they're new.
Okay, if they're new hires. So we're just waiting for forms from y'all.
And guidance, yes, which is in the process.
Chair will recognize Ms. Holloway.
Yeah, I have a question, and I think it's because of the concerns, timelines, pressure that superintendents are under and have expressed that, as Doris was asking, to make sure that the Superintendent White, that the superintendents have a release, that they're relieved from, or there's some relief there for them. I don't know how this will pan out because of legislature statute, and Doris is saying, and she's speaking for the superintendents because of everything they have to do, the timeline of the pressure of, are these individuals in place, and how will the department have that feedback to them in a timely manner, that they don't have to worry that they're following procedure. And of course, some districts don't have, Dr. Jones, these machines. Right. And to coordinate all this.
And this is something that some of the more rural superintendents brought up when we met with them this summer and first talked about this new law. Some of them expressed that they're not set up to submit their fingerprints electronically. So we did speak with state police after that. We told them that we would. State police asked us if we could survey districts to get a sense of how many were not set up to submit their fingerprints electronically. We did put a survey in the newsletter last week. We're going to run it again today and try to figure out how many we're dealing with. We're going to go back to state police, and they have offered to help us in working with those districts and local law enforcement to see how we can get them set up if they want to get set up to submit electronically, because the turnaround, we were told, is 2 days if you're able to submit electronically versus possibly a week or two if you're still using the hard cards. So we want to make sure that we're working with them, and if we can do anything to facilitate getting that set up with state police and local law enforcement, we want to make sure that we're helping them to do so.
So just to clarify, a sub-teacher can begin today if there is a crisis that occurred with someone leaving. They can begin today and then wait on the process to occur and the timeline to receive that authorization form back and background?
If they're a brand new sub, I would say no. But if they're a previous sub that you've used in the past and you've previously completed that background check, then they're good to go.
So there's going to be a delay.
If they're new, brand new only.
If they're brand new, we're urging school districts to flag that for us as soon as possible. We're also in the process of giving specific guidance on how it is that they need to bring that to our attention until we get a process set up to handle these very routinely. But as Shan said, for subs that have already been cleared, have gone through the background process, if they subbed last year, they shouldn't have any issues. It's more about new hires and us getting that process set up as quickly as possible.
But please understand, it's very difficult for these superintendents to find subs and to make sure our children are secured and safe and with someone that's legit.
Sure, we
Thanks,
understand
Ms.
that.
Holloway. Mr. Rock had comments.
Aaron, if you will, shed a little light on non-public side of the house now, because as superintendent, in my district, if, for example, the teachers are fully certified as per the state, no problem. But those who come to me with just a bachelor's degree, and I end up putting them on a non-teaching NTTA. Shed a little light on with this additional process now.
Sure. and Shan, correct me if I'm wrong, but basically we have attempted to set up a process that is pretty much as we just described for individuals that are in the classroom, whether they be substitutes or teachers who do not seek certification, to go through this same process. Again, if they were employed with you before and you had them background checked, you should be fine. But it's those new individuals that have started since this law first passed that we are setting up the process to put them through that process to make sure that they have the clearance that they need under this new law. And we will be setting up a process to issue those teaching certificates, teaching authorizations as quickly as possible to certify that they don't have any of the prohibited offenses in their records.
I don't see any problem with the teaching side, but I'm just wondering when it comes to the substitutes, because on the teaching side, I send them through our process to check their background, and before they are placed in the classroom, that has to be cleared with me. But anyway, we'll see.
Yes, so it'd be the new hires, Mr. Rock, the same scenario. You as a school district or you as the employing authority would complete this request for a teaching authorization for any new hire that is not certified.
Does any other board member have any questions or comments or concerns? Is there any objection? Are you ready for the superintendent? Do you have a comment?
I might just close with one thing, which is to say that this is a very complicated statute. It has been passed, I believe, to serve an important purpose and to resolve a pressing problem. It requires that several state agencies collaborate in order to execute a delivery chain that, as you're discussing, sometimes needs to be executed like that. And what I would think that everybody is trying to move in the right direction. I think everybody is truly working as they can to work this process out, but the law takes effect now. And I guess all that I can ask of members is, if you are seeing in your communities or in the school systems that you run that there are breakdowns in that delivery chain, I'd like to know about it. I can't promise that it will be perfect, because the exact intention of the law is that somebody who has not had this check completed does not have access to the classroom. But if there are breakdowns in the efficient operation of it, I'd like to know. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Any more? There's no more comments. Are there any objections to the motion? No objection. Motion passes. Next item, please.
Your next item is on page 59, item 5.1, consideration of recognizing Ms. Kimberly Eckert, 2018 Louisiana Teacher of the Year, for her service to the BESE Educator Effectiveness Committee, and introducing Mr. Spencer Kuiper, 2019 Louisiana Teacher of the Year. The recommendation is to receive.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second. Before Dr. Bofi comes, she does such a good job with this. I wanted to tell Ms. Eckert that I enjoyed serving with her this school year, and she's doing some dynamic things in public education, and we're so proud of her. We want to keep this trend alive. So we wish you well. Dr. Bofi going to come up here and do a real great good job of introducing everybody. But I just thank you for your service. And if you wanted any comments with me before you go, you can have those comments right now.
Wait till the very end.
All right, well, that's perfect. Okay.
Oh, no, I just wanted to so sincerely thank each of you for sharing your work with me, because that's essentially what you've done. And I have probably learned more sitting here and listening than any other experience of this entire year, because as a teacher in room 104 at Bruley High School, I could tell you exactly what policy looks like as it's manifested in my classroom. But to be able to hear the voices and the expertise and the passion of the people in this room that really sort of shape what that looks like, it gave me a whole new understanding and a whole new kind of fire to serve in my own classroom and be able to help. And I think that sometimes the part that's left out of your story is that you are tremendous champions for children. And I just want to let you know that if there's ever a time that you need a champion from a teacher, just call me on back. And with that, just again, thank you so very, very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. For Dr. Bofi. Dr. Bofi, you have the floor.
Ms. Eckert, we want to thank you for sharing our work with us, and most importantly, for sharing your passion with us and sharing your passion with people across the state and across the country. We are very proud of your contributions to recruitment to the profession in particular, and the positive lights that you have made sure that Louisiana is seeing and that others are seeing for our state. So we have a small token of appreciation that we'll share with you, and we'll all take a big picture. But I do want to say that we're also proud of you for seizing this opportunity for the Teacher of the Year Public Interest Fellowship. We're excited to see your work continue. We're excited to be able to support that. We look forward to seeing what comes of it. Recruiting people into the teaching profession is really important, and the fact that you have a passion for it, but that you also have a plan of action is really important to us. And so we look forward to seeing what you achieve with it, but we cherish the time that we were able to share with you, and we appreciate knowing that you're in room 104, and we might have to call you. It's not very far, so if we can just get you across the Mississippi. And don't ever hesitate to pick up the phone. You know, each and every one of us, I think you've gotten to know the areas that we're most passionate about as individuals, and you should continue to lean on us and push us so that we continue to all serve kids well together. So we are going to get a picture with you. I know that we also want to introduce our new Teacher of the Year. Before we do that, though, I also want to recognize that we have our 2018 State Principal of the Year in the audience. That is Mr. Tommy Byler. He is a principal at North Vermilion, which is in Vermilion Parish. Thank you, Mr. Byler. And our incoming Principal of the Year is Dr. Eric Davis, who is with the City of Monroe School District, and he is our 2019 State Principal of the Year. Congratulations. Ms. Eckert, did you want to introduce Mr. Kuiper?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to get you to do that, and then we'll all take a picture together, and our principals are here, so we'll make sure we get them in the picture as well.
It's an absolute honor to introduce Mr. Spencer Kuiper. He is already such a champion and such a voice for educators, and it's going to be very amazing to watch the ways that he elevates our profession and our state even further. So, Mr. Spencer Kuiper.
All right, board members, would you like to join us for our picture with our honorees?
Of course they do. That's what the world needs. I love it.
All right. So we're appreciative. Well, I know you just divide the ball. I appreciate all the hard work. We're going to do it. I see you did. That's outstanding.
Well, yeah, we can meet anytime.
Statute. Go to the end of the statute, see what the penalty for non-compliance is. If there's not, well, it ain't that serious. If there's no penalty for it, you don't have to worry about it.
You read it right there?
Okay, we're letting the board members return to the podium. The dais.
Oh, no.
That was such a powerful motion. I kind of hate to ask, but is there any objections to the motion? If there's no objections, then that motion passed. Next item.
Your next item is on page 90, item 7.1, consideration of executive session regarding discussion of the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of a person in accordance with Louisiana Revised Statute 4216 regarding the records review for the following persons: Juliana Lands, Andrea Malbrough Terrell, Michael Lynn McFarland, Jonathan Craig St. Andrews, Billy Flowers, Melvinia Dickerson, Phyllis Marie Alexander, Tisha Ann Holland King, Shanda Goff, Brian Toldson, and K. Martha Williams.
Can I get a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Bophy, second by Mr. Davis. Is there any, before we go into executive session, is there any public comment or board discussion before we take the roll call vote? Well, we'll take the roll call vote at this time.
Dr. Bophy?
Yes.
Dr. Bophy votes yes. Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Davis votes yes. Ms. Edmonston is absent. Mr. Garvey is absent. Ms. Holloway?
Yes.
Ms. Holloway votes yes. Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Jones votes yes. Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis votes yes. Ms. Orange Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Orange Jones votes yes. Mr. Rock?
Yes.
Mr. Rock votes yes. Ms. Boche?
Yes.
Ms. Boche votes yes. And Dr. Thomason?
Yes.
Dr. Thomason votes yes.
It looked like we got, well, we got every affirmative vote from all board members, so we got at least 2/3. And at this point, we'll let Ms. Landry read a statement.
Be advised that the audience be advised that we will be in executive session for the length of time necessary for the discussion. No votes will be taken while the board is in executive session. All votes will be made in public. Additionally, public disclosure is not required of matters discussed in a properly held executive session. At this time, the Educator Effectiveness Committee stands in recess to go into executive session. Okay.
Can I get a motion to reconvene the education?
So move.
Second, motion by Dr. Bofey, second by Ms. Orange Jones. Okay.
Your next item is on page 91, item 7.2, consideration of a records review regarding the issuance of an ancillary early childhood certificate appropriate to the credentials of Ms. Juliana Lands. The recommendation is to grant, deny, or defer.
I get a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Okay,
I'd
Ms.
like to
Garvey.
make a motion that we take all of these together in global, unless there's any objections.
I would second that motion.
Second by Dr. Jones, Ms. Orange Jones. Okay.
So the motion would be to grant, deny, or defer.
Grant.
To grant all.
Motion
So
is-
we have a motion to take these in globo by Mr. Garvey and seconded by Ms. Orange Jones. And so the motion is to grant the records review for all of these.
Do we have any objections to that motion?
We need a second on that.
Second.
Second.
Okay.
I saw Mr. Rock, so we'll go with Mr. Rock for the second.
So Jim and Tommy. Ms. Davis, are we within protocol to do it that way? Thank you. Now, any objections?
Now, do we have any objections to the motion that's just been made? If there's no objections, then the motion passes.
This concludes your agenda.
Thank you for coming.